I'd met Prince, and I was talking with Prince, and he was like, 27 was definitely my hardest year.
I'd never heard of Prince. I'd never heard of Prince. I was staying at a buddy of mine's house in Pacific Palisades, and so I got back out to the house, and I asked the housekeeper, have you ever heard of a person called Prince? And she said, oh, Mr. Williams, my children have all of his records. I thought it was sensational. Well, absolutely. I thought it was absolutely sensational. I thought that and A Hard Day's Night, the best probably rock and roll movies I think that were made. I thought it was a great score. He was total professional. Absolutely professional. Very, very, very quiet. We didn't talk off the set that much, and I like that a lot. I like that big time. So anyway, they wanted me to do a screen test, and I said, oh, fine. It's okay. So we went to the studio, and Prince happened to walk into the production room just as my tape was being put in the VCR. And he stood back there, and he says, get that guy.
My job was to find the you inside of you. And to do that, I studied everything about you and needed to be alone totally with you. I was looking for passion points. When Prince was 5 years old, his mother had taken him to see a rehearsal of his father in a theater. He saw his father in the spotlight at a piano, 5 of the most beautiful women he had ever seen in his life. And that was it. That was the moment that fixated Prince.
His father didn't have a gun. His father didn't swear and beat up his mother. I asked him in which ways Purple Rain was accurate.
He profited by building a mystique. He's weird. Is he a boy? Is he a girl? Is he black? Is he white? But Purple Rain is really fun, entertaining. The music was incredible.
You know, I pick up reviews in my work. I hear a lot of talk about, will he ever match the success of such and such? You know, it's not for somebody who doesn't play music to step up and say, you know, that's not as good as. And it's our journey.
Every great performer has a period where they're totally in sync with the mind of pop culture. They can do no wrong. From Dirty Mind through Purple Rain, every album was better. If you really look at a very close study of his album and the songs that released as singles, he began to rebel against his success.
Let me see you dance. Wow, big down, bitch.
You had all the money in the world. Everything you were doing was respected and loved and considered the best. And a few years pass and you're not the best anymore.
He wasn't on top anymore. He had a good decade, had a good run, but that run is over.
There was another thing going on. It was the realization that rap and hip hop were not just a passing fad.
This is a business, and when people are involved in it, you have successes. I understand that, and I knew there would be times where records wouldn't sell as much, but I was cool with that because success pretty much is what you make it to. If an album goes down the chart, that isn't something I can control. I just did the music. Once I do the music, it's a success. I mean, that's it for me.
Prince was kind of on that down curve. You know, the influence, but it was dying out. He wasn't as popular. Around the World in a Day, you know, Parade album, I mean, all that stuff was over. So now he's trying to redefine himself.
He was the artist, he was the producer, and he was the engineer. He needed me, but he also knew a lot himself. He could run the board. David Leonard and I designed a DiMidio API console.
He was so eager for this damn console.
A custom console for his home studio.
It was a party we were having.
And a whole bunch of people came, then the guy couldn't handle them.
Stevie Nicks came on the scene. I was kind of commissioned to make her comfortable. I had to take her flowers, do some things to make her feel comfortable in Minneapolis. She had fallen in the bathroom. I helped her up. She was like, oh, you're such a good hostess. I did not like that, but I did it. And I told Prince, I said, she fucking called me a fucking hostess. He thought that was the funniest thing ever. Grabbed his stomach, he was laughing so hard. Then I remember thinking, am I hostess? Who am I in this story?
I'll be here.
The neighbors don't dig it. I have to respect them because I moved in their neighborhood. See, I want to live in a place that's big enough so that when people come by, I can be with them. The pity is that I do feel like prisoners sometimes.
My job was to create a home for us while he was away. I was very happy to do so. Picked him up at the airport and he was so excited to see what the house looked like. When we drove up, there's a circular drive, but you look out the back windows and it was just expanse and it's beautiful.
My name's Joe Ruffalo. This is Bob Cavallo. Hello.
He had 200 acres subdividable to 3 houses per acre and a big mansion on there too.
The first thing I did was take him down. You got to see the studio. The studio had not been totally hooked up yet, but all the gear was being put in.
I think they were just breaking ground. I think he bought the property. No, it wasn't built yet.
This was his dream, this complex.
I saw to it that he owned 100% of Paisley Park, the complex, with no loans. If you understand finance, to have none of that encumbered by any debt. And I did it because he spent money like it was water.
And all of his business managers and his personal managers were telling, are you out of your mind? Everybody wanted a piece of him. Lawyers and accountants, architects, trying to get his approval on building Paisley Park. There was no economic reason why he should have ever built that place. It was a white elephant since day one. His own private playground.
And he'd fly girls in to shoot videos with them. I have a camera crew from Chicago because he had a thing Friday night that he wanted to shoot this girl on Saturday. And so all that money just kept going out, but I protected his bottom line.
The architects had built a mock-up of Paisley Park, tried to show Prince the design concept once. The guy brought it into the room and we set it in the studio. Prince told him what he wanted, and then he invited that guy to leave. No gratification. He expected perfection. That drove everybody he worked with.
David and I were supposed to go to Paisley and be his engineers, and I thought that'd be perfect because, he would kill one engineer, which he almost killed Susan. It took so long to build Paisley.
Dream Factory Crystal Ball happened as he was going through some personal, artistic, professional changes. Sign of the Times is where he landed. It finally came online January of 1986. The first song we did at that home studio was Ballad of Dorothy Parker. On the TV monitor, we watched the Challenger explosion. Sign of the Times didn't come together as a visionary album. Sign of the Times was Plan B. Plan A was to make a triple album. It was called Dream Factory at one point. A little bit later, it was Crystal Ball.
God, there's so many songs.
In '86, a Dream Factory was being worked on.
It was at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles.
He would never stay away from Sunset Sounds for too long. In between tours, he'd love to go out to Sunset. Sometimes he would call in the girls. It might be Wendy or Lisa or Susanna or Jill Jones to do backing vocals. I would get a phone call early telling me what was expected of me that day.
And we could tag team him.
Typically, we would have been out all night.
There was a break room with a couple of nice couches. We could take a little cat nap. Well, he always referred to me as Cuz, short for cousin. Cuz, Studio 3.
And I was there too. He was tapping into Wendy and Lisa.
Wendy and Lisa were so critical. Prince relied on their ears for a lot of stuff.
The Dream Factory came from a really productive time.
He was breaking up the group. A lot of that material have Wendy and Lisa's stuff all over it.
Yeah, I'm working on music that I recorded with the Revolution. They're free to come jam with us anytime they want to. And I don't see a reunion happening. Sheila E.'s expected to come out soon.
The main reason in joining Prince's band was to play drums and let everybody know I could play drums. Playing drums is more exciting, more fulfillment musically than being a solo artist.
He would write a bunch of songs, put a record together, and then have doubts about it.
So he just said, I've decided to let Bobby, Lisa, and Wendy leave the group. There were no issues with Bobby. Mark Brown, he wanted a solo career.
And I was telling Motown, I was like, you guys got to understand this. We need to create a new pathway here. They wasn't trying to hear that.
Most of the band members was Sheila E.'s band. Prince told Sheila to fire her band, which was Miko, Bonnie, Levi.
Levi, you want to be in my band? Because you're going to take Mark Brown's place. I need you on bass guitar. I'm like, yeah.
I just did my best to dissuade him from breaking up the group. There were issues earlier in the year. I thought for sure things were going to move forward with them. I just said, things seem to have cleared up. And he said, that's not that. I just want to make a change and go a different way. He just wanted to work with Sheila E. for whatever reason.
And then Prince hired her band and then made Sheila the drummer. Yeah, I was new.
Wendy and Lisa and Bobby, what are they going to do? Are they going to invite me to go with them? But they said, look, we don't expect you to quit on our behalf, and we couldn't guarantee you an income. He didn't want to listen to me. I voiced my concern about it. Sure. I said, don't do that. I think it's a mistake. And he said, no, I've made my mind up. I'm letting your bandmates go, but you have a choice to stay or go. Where am I going to go if I leave right now? And I said, okay.
There were still tensions in his relationship. Those were tough times.
What am I going to do? I didn't even imagine this happening. I was going to buy a house in Minnetonka.
He could kind of do everybody and everybody's position in a band. He could outdo you. He tried to be Lisa, to channel her when he'd play piano, and he could never do it.
Wow.
We had been at Sunset Sound for a long time, and the mood was somber.
In addition to all that, he had tension with Susanna. What's she supposed to do when her sister leaves and here she is?
In 86.
Crystal Ball reflected difficulties Prince was going through with Susanna.
Crystal Ball itself, it took a long time.
We were at the kitchen table
At the house on Galpin.
and he said, "Can you write down the story of Cynthia Rose?" I told Prince about this little girl that Wendy and I went to school with, Cynthia Rose. Cynthia was on the spectrum. He was like, "Give me all the details. Just tell me everything." So I did. Her favorite number was 20. She would draw happy faces, who the kids in the class were and what she had for breakfast. And it was always starfish and pee-pee. And he was like, "The pee-pee's gotta go. Is it okay if I say coffee instead of pee-pee?" The studio had been finished downstairs at our house. He disappeared for 10 hours. Came back upstairs. He said, "Okay, it's done."
He's got a shirt off. He's kind of sweaty. He said, "Come on down."
So I went downstairs and he was standing at the console. He presses play.
There it is.
There's starfish and coffee. Maple syrup and jam, but not butterscotch clouds and tangerines and a side order of ham. That was his.
Bob walked into the office, said to Prince, "Why don't you play Lenny Son of the Times?" He said, "Okay." Unbelievable.
And there were serious things going on he hadn't addressed lyrically.
That song was written. We were staying at a hotel. I can't remember the name of the hotel here. Gosh, why can't I remember the name of it?
The Bellagio Hotel.
We stayed there all the time and there was an earthquake.
It scared the
He was like, "We gotta go. I don't want to be here, this high up in this building and we gotta get out of here. We gotta go back to Minneapolis." The next morning,
As we were getting ready, Gilbert came in with the newspaper. Front cover,
LA Times, AIDS epidemic.
out of control.
The paper, the earthquake, the fear he felt,
He was like, something's happening to the world.
it all hit.
And he was like, we got to get out of here.
And then flying back to Minneapolis. The first thing he did is go and record. He recorded Sign of the Times.
To my friends, I've often described finishing a song as a girl walking through the door, a new face that you've never seen before. And I longed to see that face so much once I started the process that I have to complete it.
With Sign of the Times, he was not trying to compete with hip-hop. His music was evolving. He was trying to be part of a trend that separated melody and rhythm.
Sign of the Times, things are changing. Well, I think the subtext of that song is his internal world, the strife in his internal world.
Not your average bear. Let's put it that way. Always on your toes.
And that was really funny. I'll tell you something. I told Susanna that you were coming, and she said, "Well, is there anything I can do? Do you want me to come by to make it seem like you have friends?" And I said, "No, that would be lying." And she just kind of put her head down because she knows she doesn't come to see me as much as maybe she would either want to or think that I want to or whatever.
If he was working, I just did something else. Like if he had to explain to you, I'm in the middle of something, that was a distraction. And you had to figure out a way to become part of that machine, his creative mind, so that you didn't get in the way.
I was super young anyway. I mean, I was too young. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
It's breaking down. It's clear that it probably cannot be saved. As this landscape is shifting, he's changing his mind about what he wants to share.
Not that I do this, but if you think about it, wouldn't it be cool to be able to put all your albums back to back and not get bored?
He was writing so many songs and doing so much stuff that he got tired of his voice.
My favorite songs are the ones that are gone.
He got a couple of special effects devices, the Publison Infernal Machine, which is a pitch-changing device.
Camille, it was actually just a name that popped into his head when he wrote Shockadelica as a taunt to Jesse Johnson. This Camille character was going to serve as an alter ego for another set of songs.
If I Was Your Girlfriend was a direct hit. Now, I was kind of the bird in the gilded cage. He wanted to twin off with me. That was hard for him. I couldn't be that fantasy for him. And I had my own needs, and they were real with my family, particularly my twin sister. This whole time period was making music, making art, loving each other.
All of this sexual mystique, he was just a sweet boy. It wasn't all about
Prince had lots of women. When Prince was with one, he was working on the other.
I met Prince the day before I met Hugh Hefner. He was so private. He liked having a mystery with whoever he was with.
Well, I'm like this. personal actually means personal. My music is my music. That's pretty much what you come to the party for. If I give you something else, that's me giving you something else. If you seek something else, then there's something inside of you that's lacking.
I made Slow Love with Prince, and it's not what you think. I wrote a song on his Sign of the Times album. And my relationship with Prince was significantly impacted by my atheism. We would have a huge argument about how the Bible is full of misogyny, femicide, infanticide, war, slavery. He found it impossible to work with a person who didn't believe what he believed, and he was a deeply, deeply religious man, and he had a literal biblical worldview, didn't believe in dinosaurs. And I challenged Prince on it. He had never been to a museum, and this was in New York. And I took him to the Museum of Natural History for an exhibit of Lucy, the Australopithecine. And we're standing there looking at the bones of Lucy, and I say to him, "Look, that's our great grandmother." He looked down, he turned red, and he looked at me and he said, "I don't know about you, but I don't come from no ape." Had I gone to an Easter service with him and just nodded my head, I might have made a lot more records with him. Yeah. He was very boyish,
Then I think he knew the psyche of girls. He really did, in a way that was like, it was part of his personality to be very, very feminine.
That's what inspired him to write If I Were Your Girlfriend during this period. His relationship with Susanna Melvoin. It was the busiest, most spectacular time in his life, and it was the busiest and most spectacular time in my life.